Hey, this is Danny Eni with Firepole Marketing, and you're listening to Stephanie O'Brien's Moved by Purpose podcast.
So I really encourage people that if you become a problem solver, you can kind of define your destiny, even if you're in a traditional work environment.
Are you longing to know what your purpose is? Are you on the wrong career path? Do you feel like there must be more to life? Don't worry, there's hope. It's time to be moved by purpose. Now your host, Stephanie O'Brien.
You are listening to the Moved by Purpose podcast with your host, Stephanie O'Brien. And today I am very excited for this guest because she is somebody that actually has a traditional job and loves what she does. She's an inspiring and enthusiastic presenter, Christy Wright, and she has spoken to groups of thousands at corporate events, women's conferences, and some of the country's top universities. Christy is also a certified business coach whose direct and genuine presentations cover a range of topics from business and money management to personal development and goal setting. A graduate of the University of Tennessee, Christy and her husband Matt live in Brentwood, Tennessee with their son Carter and Bernice Mountain Dog Jackson. Welcome to the show, Christy. I am very excited and honored to have you on today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. So, most of my guests are entrepreneurs or people that at least are building a side business. And I'm really excited to have you on today because, one, you focus a lot of your work on helping people build side businesses. And then, two, you actually are working for somebody else and actually enjoying it.
Yes.
So, which is really exciting for those that are still in traditional work, and that you can actually do that you can find traditional work that is enjoyable. So I would love to know how you got started with the Lampo Group. And if for anybody that doesn't know what the Lampo Group is, that's Dave Ramsey. So most of the listeners know who Dave Ramsey is and what he does. But I would love to know how you got started working with him and what kind of led you to doing what you do now over there.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting because both of my parents were entrepreneurs. And so I was raised in a very entrepreneurial family. They had separate businesses. So I really, from the time that I was a child, grew up in a very entrepreneurial environment. Additionally, I'm wired very entrepreneurial. I'm very much a go-getter, kind of kill it, drag it home. You want to affect your income. You want to affect your destiny and your future and your work. And so I'm very wired like that. And I've had a couple of side businesses myself, in addition with working full time as I was developing my career. So I started my career in nonprofit. And whenever I really felt like that season was over and I was ready to do something different, I kind of took the same strategy that I have always taken in looking for a new job. And that is, I look for the company first. I think it's really important that you find a company that you believe in what they do, because what I encourage people when I'm doing business coaching and career coaching is it doesn't matter if you have the greatest position in the world. If you're at a company that you don't respect what they do, you're not aligned with their values, you don't like the culture or your coworkers or your leader, then it doesn't really matter the role that you play. So I searched for companies first, and that's how I came across Dave Ramsey. I was in the process of paying off my debt myself. So it definitely hit home and hit me at a personal time in my life when that information was so helpful. And I did whatever I could do to get my foot in the door. And so I started out working in the youth and teen department developing products. So something very different than what I do today. And so I developed products for youth and teens for about a year. And during that process, I kind of started working with Dave's daughter, Rachel Cruz, who's now a New York Times bestselling author, and she's on our team as well. We have a large team here, 500 people here in Brentwood, but she was just coming on board at the time. And so we had her booked for a conference that she was going to speak at 20 events. And after we got the dates and the travel back, Dave was like, you know what? She's just out of college. This is too much. And so we had to pull her from 10 of the 20 dates for this conference 2 weeks before we went on the road. And so I was the one that relayed this information to the client. And I said, I'm so sorry. She really can't do all of these dates. The travel's too much. And they said, you know, we've got her booked for 20 dates. What are we going to do? And I said, I'll do it. And they said, can you speak? I said, I think so. And so I went on the road that summer and I spoke at 10 of the dates and Rachel spoke at 10 of the dates. And that fall when we created the speakers group, I became a part of it. And we really saw a need where we turned down about 3,000 speaking events a year for Dave that he couldn't be at because he's one person. So we saw a need for more speakers and more message bearers. And I was slid into that group. So what I really encourage people, if they're looking to pursue their dream job, is first and foremost, look for a company you believe in and then do anything you can do to get in the door. And once you get your foot in the door and you prove yourself and you build a reputation for yourself, that company, if it's a good company, they will move you to the right seat on the bus. They will take care of you because they want to keep good people. But additionally, I encourage people also is you really have a lot of control over what position you have, whether you realize it or not. Even if you're working in a traditional company environment, in Lean In, Sheryl Sandberg says, more often than not, people do not apply for positions and then they are given those positions. Often when they're promoted, they solve a problem and that problem that they solved becomes their new position. And that's exactly what I did. We had a problem that we had 10 dates we didn't have a speaker for. I solved that problem and that has now become my full-time job. So I really encourage people that if you become a problem solver, you can kind of define your destiny, even if you're in a traditional work environment.
I agree with that. And I love that you mentioned that because some people, I hear this a lot and I was guilty of this myself before I grew up a little bit. And that was like, I've been here X amount of years. I deserve to be getting a raise or to be promoted. Right. And someone once said, it's not deserve, it's earn.
Right.
And I was like, what do you mean by that?
Right.
So, and you gave such a practical example of finding a problem and offering a solution or being the solution.
Right.
And it's adding value.
Right.
And that's how you move up. And you're right. You have way more control over what position you have than a lot of people think. So it's very empowering. I love that mindset and that you're sharing that because there's a lot of people that just feel very defeated or helpless.
Exactly. And the danger of that entitlement mentality of I deserve it is not only does it keep you in that victim mindset and that helpless state where you're just waiting on someone to promote you or give you a new position. Aside from that is that's a very unattractive quality is to be entitled. And I struggle with some of the college graduates I coach or speak to or work with because a lot of college graduates have that mindset, well, I have a diploma, so someone should offer me a great starting job and starting salary. You know what? Everyone has a diploma. And so you've got to do more than that to set yourself apart, to work and fight and prove yourself and pay your dues and do the grunt work and start at the bottom to get a little experience before someone's going to offer you a great job. And so if you have that mindset that you're willing to work, not only can you affect your destiny, but you have these amazing personal qualities that make people like you, that make people want to promote you because you're a hard worker.
Absolutely. And I think that attitude of, well, I have a degree, so therefore I automatically deserve to be manager or supervisor or whatever it is that some people can have, it can come off in your job interviews as being very arrogant.
Right.
And sometimes if that's so deeply rooted in somebody, how you answer those interview questions, they're going to pick up on that.
Right.
And and then they're like, I've been on like 20 interviews and I haven't been offered a job. It's like, well, let's look into this.
Right. Right.
So
exactly.
I love that. Now, when you said you spoke, did you have any prior speaking experience or did you just dive in?
I did a little bit, but I don't even know if it counts. I have worked with high school students through a high school ministry called Young Life, and I would give talks at Young Life. But let me just paint this picture for you. We're talking 20 to 30 teenagers crammed in a living room, and I'm giving a 10 to 20 minute talk about a scripture in the Bible with some stories around it. So it was not by any stretch of the imagination professional speaking, but I will say that I have always been very comfortable on stage, very comfortable with words and articulating messages and that type of thing. I've always loved storytelling. I've always been a very animated and expressive person. And so I was just confident. Sometimes I'm too confident, but I was just confident that I could do what they needed me to do because I was very focused on solving the problem. At that stage in the game, it definitely was not anything about me getting ahead, me having a career in speaking. That wasn't even on the radar. That thought never crossed my mind. I just thought, this client needs a speaker for 10 of these dates. You better figure out how to do it between now and then. So it really came from being focused on that.
And that is also a really big key. And I love that you said that. It wasn't about you getting ahead. And this is whether somebody is looking for a job, wanting a promotion, or trying to grow your own business to transition, or even maybe you have transitioned and you want to take it to the next level. You can sense when somebody is trying to do something, even if it's kind of camouflage as, oh, I'm helping you.
Right.
When it's only to advance their own agenda.
Right.
I get that. I can immediately sense that in any message I get or email or LinkedIn. And it's like, I know you're saying all the right words.
Right.
But I can just sense that you're only doing this because you either want to sell something to me or you're trying to just later ask me for something. Right. I don't know. And it's like not a genuine, I'm giving and I'm not expecting anything in return.
Right. Exactly. And that's such a powerful point, too, when you relate it to businesses, whether it's a side business or if someone's an entrepreneur running a small business. If you want to take that concept and apply it to social media, and I don't want to get off track here, but this is such an important point. Social media, people that are the most successful are those that give and give and give. But what businesses make mistakes are they do exactly what you're saying. They ask and ask and ask. It's come here, sign up for our email list, buy this thing. We've got a special on this. It's asking for sales, asking and asking. And people don't want to follow you on social media when all you're doing is asking of them. Gary Vaynerchuk wrote an awesome book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And it's how to do social media well as a business. And the concept is you give and give and give. Those are the jabs. And then right hook is you make an ask after every 3 gives. And so after you've given them quotes that inspire them that they want to share, you've given them content that inspires them, stories that inspire them, things that lift them up, or tools and resources that are helpful to them, expecting nothing in return. Then when you have a right hook and you ask them something like, hey, come to this event, or hey, buy this book, they're that much more willing to because they're a loyal part of your tribe and following, and you gave them without asking something in return more often than you asked.
And I think I'm just trying to put myself in the position of the person that there's many people that listen to this show that they just can't stand where they're at in their jobs and they desperately want to get out. Now, some of them are building side businesses because they truly feel that is something they're meant to do. Some, I think, try to escape by starting a business, sure. Even though that's not the best fit for them. But nonetheless, they're so focused on escaping, that desperation of wanting to get out and wanting to grow their business so they can have a sustainable business to live off of or income to live off of. And it's that expecting nothing in return and being patient with the process.
Yes.
That I think can be really challenging in this position where you're in your day job, building your side business, and wanting to transition. Now, you love what you do, and I love that. And sometimes if people are in horribly toxic environments, I encourage them to find another traditional job.
Sure. Just
to get out of that toxicity.
Sure.
But then there's some where it might just be the best fit, just most ideal for them to stay and to be patient with building their side business. So what can expecting nothing in return is really big here, but also how can someone, and I don't know if you could relate to this or not, but I'm sure you have worked with or heard enough people that don't like what they do.
Sure.
What can somebody do in that situation while they're waiting, while they're building their side business, but currently are not the most thrilled with where they're currently at? And how can they get to a position of truly giving because they want to give, and not to give just to help them get out of where they are?
Sure, absolutely. Well, the best time to start a side business or business at all is when you are in a strong position yourself, because then your job doesn't become something you're trying to escape from. Now, it may not be your dream job, but like you said, if it's a toxic environment, if it is literally sucking the life out of you every day, that is not a good place for you personally to be to start a side business. You're not going to be able to bring strength and creativity and energy to start and work on this business after hours when the majority of your days are spent with the life sucked out of you. So I totally agree with you. The first step, if you are in an environment or a position that is described that way, where it sucks the life out of you, it's a toxic environment, you're deeply unhappy, and no amount of positive, inspirational devotionals in the morning is going to get you excited about it, then you need to focus on fixing that problem first. I recently wrote a blog called How to Do What You Love and Love What You Do, and it has some steps on how to get out of something you hate and get into something you love. And it's similar to what I mentioned a minute ago. But first, you want to look for the company first. Find a company you believe in, you love what they do. Second, you want to focus on who you are. So even though you want to kind of do almost anything to get your foot in the door, you don't want to take a position that's completely counter to who you are and how you're wired. For example, I was recruited several years ago to be an assistant at a company here in Nashville that I love. I love what they do. I believe in them. I'm such a huge fan. But I know myself, and I would be a terrible, terrible assistant. I am not good with details. I'm not detail oriented. I'm not very organized. I am creative, and I would be a terrible assistant. So that was not going to be a good fit for me. So you want to still remember what your strengths are in the process. You want to try to find something that is close to in line with your strengths, even if it's not ideal. And the last thing you want to do is you want to be willing to pay your dues. Your first job out of college is not probably your dream job, and maybe your second or third isn't either, but those may give you experience that you can then open up opportunities and open up doors and create relationships that lead to eventually, a few steps later, your dream job. So don't have that entitlement mindset of, I don't have to do the grunt work, I'm so above this. Be willing to do some hard work. I've done some really hard work. Even when I started out speaking, I'll tell you, people look at the big stages that I'm on and like, oh, that's so impressive. She speaks to thousands of people. Let me tell you, I've done hundreds and hundreds of events, and very few are impressive. I have spoken at family reunions where they fed me refrigerated chicken fingers. I have spoken at auditoriums that had 1,000 seats and only 3 people in it. I have spoken where one lady fell asleep and the other one was talking on her cell phone and the other one was snoring. I've been in all kinds of environments, but I go there and I give my all and I really get the experience and do my best, and that has prepared me to do the big stages. But it's often faithfulness in the small things that leads to the big things. But we have to be faithful in the small things first, or we're not ready for the big stages, the perfect jobs and the big positions and the promotions and all that good stuff. So I would really encourage people to find something that they do love if they're in that toxic environment. But like you said, if it's just an okay job, it's not their dream job, but it's an okay job and they can stay there, then really that's not a bad time to start their side business. If they want to start something on the side that maybe is a hobby and then becomes a business, or something where they want it to eventually be their full-time job, when you're in a position that is sustainable and good and not toxic, then you really can start something on the side. But I would encourage you to do your best at your full-time job, because if you daily are practicing kind of a bad attitude, you're only halfway doing things because you're thinking, I'm just here until collecting a paycheck until I can go do what I really want to do, those character qualities will follow you. And your customers on your side business will experience that, because who you are is who you are all the time. You can't be terrible all day at your regular job and then just turn it on and be awesome for your side business customers. So I would just encourage people to work hard, have a great attitude, and look at that as a blessing that's enabling you to start your side business rather than something just to get through and dreading it.
I absolutely agree. And the integrity is really big. That was really big for me when I was building my business around my day job. And I noticed when I started just giving my all, like I gave my all to my business, and I said, I better be giving my all to this current position.
Right.
And, how can I be a blessing to my employer? Because this job is a blessing, even though I might not be thrilled with everything about it. Like, this job is giving me relevant experience.
Right.
There's great people that I work with. It's just mistakes that I learn. It's the supervision and the feedback. There's so many things I started focusing on of all the blessings and benefits that this current job was giving me.
Right.
And by the time I put my resignation in, my supervisor was like, I just noticed something dramatically changed in your attitude and in your work ethic in the last 7 months. You know, you just showed up, you were committed, you were like taking responsibility for things, you were adding extra value, you were seeing problems and offering solutions. And I mean, and that's when I was building my side business.
Right.
Was
Well, that's so great because you took that approach. You allowed that to inspire you and motivate you to do great in your full-time job rather than the opposite where you thought, well, I'm kind of checked out now, so I don't have to give my all because I know I've got this thing on the side that no one knows about. You took the opposite approach and it helped you in both areas. And that's what we see happen. If you allow that to motivate you and inspire you and to help you develop even better qualities as a professional, you'll reap benefits in both areas of your life, which is awesome.
So for those that are building their side business, what are common mistakes you see people making? And how can they avoid those?
Yes. It's funny you say that because I wrote a blog titled The Top 3 Mistakes Side Businesses Make recently because they're very common mistakes that people make. I will say the first one is this. The first one is them not making money. It sounds obvious that the point of business would be to make money, but you'd be amazed at how many people start a side business out of a hobby and they continue to treat it like a hobby. They don't put an emphasis on keeping costs down, on pricing well. They don't put any kind of emphasis on profit. And so they just kind of tread water. They just kind of break even and it doesn't become a profitable business. And then they justify it like, well, I'm just doing it because I love it. Well, that's great. Your hobby is something you should love, but business needs more than love to survive. You need profits. And so really helping people understand not only the necessity of money for business to be successful, but the nobility of it. People think money is evil, and it's simply not. When you serve your customers well, Rabbi Daniel Lapin says they give you certificates of appreciation, and those are dollars. That's what those are. They're certificates of appreciation with presidents' faces on them. So serving people well in the marketplace is a noble and good thing, and if we can help people understand that, then it will help them emphasize the necessity and nobility of money in their business for their business to be successful. So money is a huge hurdle. Another one is that they don't have a plan. A lot of people with side businesses fly by the seat of their pants. They make it up as they go, throw things against the wall and see what sticks. But there really are best practices. There are books. There are people that have gone before you that have plans, even basic baby business plans that can help you prioritize and focus all your effort and energy to have the most successful. Having a plan is definitely a big one. And then the third one that people really struggle with is not asking for help. Many people starting a side business just try to do everything themselves, which is not a bad thing because that's how we get started. And that's kind of what you have to do. But what I encourage people to do is to be much more creative than that. I encourage people starting side businesses and small business leaders to make a list of everything you have to do for this business at this point in time. Make a list of everything, every task, every problem you're solving, everything you're working on, and then go through that list and circle everything that you're excited about, that you're really good at, that energizes you, the things that only you can do. Circle all of those things. Everything that is not circled, that is not in your strengths, that you're not excited about, that doesn't give you energy and you're dreading, write out next to it the name of someone that can help you. You have incredible relationships and networks and resources of people that may be able to help you with that. For example, I spent an entire weekend over 48 hours trying to figure out how to build my own website. And this was several years ago when I had a coaching business. Trying to build my own website to save myself the money of paying someone to develop it for me. And after that, I wanted to throw my computer out the wall. I'm not good at developing. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what any of these terms or codes mean. Eventually, I just paid for someone. And then I went out and got some more coaching clients to pay for that expense of having someone develop it for me. So you can delegate things. You can outsource things. Some things you may be able to cut entirely because they're not a priority. But if you focus your efforts and energy on what you're really good at, you're going to be the most successful, versus trying to spread yourself so thin and do things you're not good at and you don't enjoy. Not only will you have less stress if you do this, but the quality of the business will be much, much higher because everyone working on it is working in their strengths.
I absolutely agree. I think delegation was one of the things I learned really quickly, that I cannot do this all and do it all well. And so, but that was a process too. That was a learning. Leadership was a learning curve for me.
Sure.
Of now I'm delegating. Now I have contractors or a team of people that I work with consistently, and I was not a supervisor or manager or I did not have any leadership role in my traditional job. And then suddenly now I'm out on my own and now a leader.
Sure.
And I don't have a supervisor to tell me how to do this.
Right. Right.
And that was a big shock for me too. And I know EntreLeadership is a great resource for how to lead or leadership development skills and how to learn. Because I listen to that podcast and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing.
It really is a helpful resource, and there are a lot of free helpful resources for business leaders. Another complaint that I hear when it comes to when I encourage them to delegate or outsource is they say, well, I don't have any money. I'm just getting started. I don't have the money to pay someone to develop a website for me. I would just encourage people to barter. If you're creative, you can barter with people. So that website that I got created, actually a separate one later, whenever I was working on it, I bartered with someone. So there was a guy that I knew, a friend of a friend of a friend, that was a programmer. And I offered to coach him, do business coaching. And for every hour that I coached him, he worked on my website. And so you can barter with people. If you have a product or service or skill, you can barter with people to get what you need created when you're just getting started if you don't have the cash to actually pay for it, because that's a common struggle. But you can also overcome that by just being creative.
That's exactly what I did. And the relationships you get from bartering, and how it's a win-win for everyone when you barter. Eventually, you do need to get out of that bartering phase.
Right.
and into making money and bringing in a profit. But that's where I feel that a lot of the clients that I work with have this mental block when it comes to money. I mean, you said many people think money is evil, and I've read that book, Thou Shalt Prosper, by Rabbi Lapin, and it is so powerful that the mindsets that people have about money are, one, most likely why they're in their financial pickle that they're in, and two, why their business isn't making money.
Right.
So that is in addition to Dave Ramsey, that book is definitely highly recommended to help you understand that business is good.
Right.
Business is good. It's not evil.
I coached someone one time that she really, of all the people I've coached, she really had a problem with money. She really had a problem with charging people and profit and everything like that. And I said, as long as, and I gave her that book, and she still struggled with it. And I told her, I said, I'll be honest with you. If money represents something evil to you, your business will never succeed. And so you will run up against this wall again and again because you have an internal conflict between what you're trying to do and what you value and what you believe. So as long as you believe that money is bad, you will never be successful in business. You won't even probably make enough to survive and keep your head above water. We have to realize that it is necessary not only to have money, but it's necessary for us to believe in the goodness of it. Because as long as we don't believe it's good, we're not going to try that hard because we feel guilty for winning in the marketplace and winning with money. And so there's a real practical side to this of understanding that money is not only necessary, but believing in the goodness of money is very necessary to our success as well.
I like that. Believing in the goodness of money. And finally, there are people that are maybe have transitioned out of their day job to their side business that they believe would be more successful or more sustainable, and then it's not able to sustain them anymore, or for whatever reason it failed, or they need to bring in consistent revenue, which would be returning to a traditional job. I know you said you had a business. Mm-hmm. So want to ask you for words of encouragement for people that are in that, where you've seen what it's like to be out on your own, independent of a traditional employer, but then you need to return. Like, you've got bills to pay and you need to return for whatever reason. Or maybe people just learn that maybe this isn't what they want, and so they need to go back.
Right.
Is that a very tough transition to make?
It's interesting. I think it totally depends on what you do. The quote, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And that's what it feels like for me. I just recently came back from maternity leave in May. And as crazy as it sounds, I really missed my work because I love what I do. I'm in a very unique position that I'm working perfectly in my strengths, exactly how God created me. And I'm also working for something that matters. It's work that changes lives and helps people and makes a difference. And so it doesn't feel like work to me. I don't come to work thinking, oh, I work for the man. I don't work for Dave. I work for a corporate environment, because we're not corporate. We have an awesome culture. So it didn't feel like I was sacrificing anything whenever I took this position. It felt like I'm able to leverage a platform that has infinitely more money and resources where I can make even more of an impact. Now, I could do my own thing and be a speaker on the side or have my own business speaking and writing and that kind of thing, and I'd have complete control. But for me, I valued the impact over ownership, and everyone has to look at themselves and see what they value more. If they value ownership, then having a business is absolutely the right thing to do. But I still get to feed that kind of entrepreneurial drive in me, because a lot of what I do, I get to control. I write my own content. I get to speak into the look, tone, feel. I'm not being dictated to about what my personal brand is going to be like. So I still get to kind of feed that in the position I'm in, but I also realize that is unique. But if you value ownership and being independent, then it is right for you to have your own business. But I would encourage people that maybe are somewhere in that transition space, or they have a full-time business and they're not sure when to make the jump. I would encourage you on this, and your listeners on this. You do not need to make that jump to make your side business your full-time business until you feel like that you are working 2 full-time jobs. I coached one man who had a full-time business, and he had a side business that 10 hours a week he worked on. And for those 10 hours, he was making, in a year, for example, $10,000. Okay, 10 hours a week, $10,000 a year, working on his side business. So he did the mental math to say, well, if I quit my full-time job and I can work on this 40 hours a week, then I'll make $40,000 a year. I can sustain myself, and then I can really grow the business from there. Well, he quit his full-time job, and the business did not justify any more demand than 10 hours a week. So there was 30 hours a week he was working on it, but didn't have the revenues coming in. So he was still making $10,000, didn't have his full-time job. He was working 4 times as much, but the demand didn't justify it. So it's up to you in your full-time position to build the business up so big. You're working on it 40 hours a week, and you've got the demand and the revenues that justify 40 hours a week, and you're making 2 full incomes before you make that jump. And when you make the jump, it doesn't feel like a scary jump off a cliff. It feels like a smooth transition step into what's natural. But you've got to be so stressed and crazy of building something up that big before that transition can be smooth. You can't just assume it's going to quadruple because you quadruple your time, if that makes sense. So it's very, very important that people understand the reality of what that jump looks like if you're going to make it safely and smoothly and with wisdom.
I agree. I see that. And I even fell to that of thinking, oh, well, I'll just have so much more time and it will grow so much faster. Right. No. So I'm like, okay. I thought that this thing would really take off, but it was pretty steady, and it took a while. It took a while, and I was shocked. Now, I took that risk. Great education. Fantastic education for me. And I'm single. I don't have children or a spouse. And so that was a risk that in my life I was willing to take with minimal impact on others.
Sure.
So, but still, I love your wisdom, and going back, I can definitely see how time does not mean that you multiply the growth.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So it's been an honor to have you on the show, and I would love for the listeners to be able to connect with you and find out more about where you are. I've checked out your website and that you have really good blog articles that you write, and I'd love for them to know how to find those.
Sure. It's ChristyWright.com, ChristyWright.com. And from there, you can find any of my social and blogs and articles and downloads, anything that might be helpful. I mainly write on leadership, side business, and life balance, but also just a lot of just encouragement for our daily life as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Christy. It was a lot of fun getting to know you and just your wisdom from your own experience and the message that you share. And one of the greatest statements that I wrote down was, think about value, impact over ownership. And that's a really great thing for me, is to think about, do you care more about impact or do you care more about ownership? One isn't better than the other, but that's a really good question to think about. Right. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Yes. Thank you.
If money represents something evil to you, your business will never succeed. And so you will run up against this wall again and again because you have an internal conflict between what you're trying to do and what you value and what you believe. So as long as you believe that money is bad, you will never be successful in business. You won't even probably make enough to survive and keep your head above water.
So there you have it. That was Christy Wright sharing her wisdom and expertise with us. Those building side businesses, teaching you how to get promoted, how to do work that matters, how to find your dream job, being real with letting you know that it takes time, pay your dues, offer solutions, be a problem solver, add value, genuinely give without expecting something in return. All extremely, extremely valuable tips. And I know you guys want to make an impact and make a difference in this world and do work that matters and work that you love. And so you will follow her wisdom. And to connect with Christy, connect with her over at ChristyWright.com. That's WRIGHT. And there you can connect with her on all of her social media. And the book that she talked about, in addition to Dave Ramsey being a fantastic financial resource, and Entre Leadership being a fantastic leadership podcast to listen to, Rabbi Lapin, Thou Shalt Prosper. So if you have any issues with money or any negative affiliations with wealth and creating money, I highly recommend that book and highly suggest that you process through those mindsets that hold you back. Also, I do cover a training that is a Google Hangouts training. It is on my website under my training tab, called Mindset Mastery, 4 mindsets that keep people stuck and how to overcome them. So make sure that you check that out completely free over at movedbypurpose.net. That's MOVED by purpose.net. If you like this episode, make sure that you subscribe, rate, and write a review if you wish. And I would love to hear from you if you have any questions, suggestions of guests, or just want to say hi. Don't be a stranger. And I'll talk to you all next week.